All right, welcome everyone. Holding by Book of Leviticus chapter 17. Again, want to welcome everyone. Holding by the Book of Leviticus chapter 17. We are still in verse 10. All right, maybe we'll finish off verse 10. Today again, the Torah says, Ish mi beis Yisrael, min agar b'soichem, sher yochel kol dam, v'nasati fanai b'nefesh ocheles, es adam v'chorati oisa mikerevam. Right, so here again, the Torah says, and whatsoever man, again, we saw, who it's coming to include, right? Talking about converts and whatever, right? Who it's coming to include. There be of you, the house of Israel, or the strangers sojourn among you, eats any blood, I will set my face against them. Anyone that eats blood, I will cut them off from among his people. So, spoke the last few weeks about seemingly a hierarchy, right, of basically gave us a list of different levels, right, in the world, right. The highest level is the Jews. Both parents are Jewish, right. Then you have their wives, and then you have a convert who's comes that the mother's a convert, and then the father's a Jew. Whatever, different levels, right? Different levels, and who this verse coming to include. And he says, one of the things we mentioned, which again not so popular, but we're not out here for a popularity contest, and that is that when we talk about different levels, right? When we talk about different levels, so first has to understand that not everyone, is created equal, right? Souls are different, right? Souls of a Jew have an advantage, major advantage. The Ramchal says, in Derech Hashem, they have major advantage over a non-Jew. Got more mitzvahs, a lot more mitzvahs. Doesn't mean a non-Jew can't have a portion of the world to come, right? Doesn't mean that, right? But essentially, what do I have? For different levels, right? And bring up, see, everyone's created equal. The Jews think they're better. No, not a question of thinking we're better or not. God distinguished, right, the Jewish people, right? We spoke about that. God distinguished the Jewish people among all the nations. Now, what makes us different? The mitzvahs we keep, right? That's what makes us different. So we spoke about that, a lot of different levels over here. Now, a few other interesting things we're going to mention. One is that the Torah says, anyone who eats blood, right? Right? And the proselyte that lives amongst them, that eats any blood. And he says, I will set my face against that soul that eats blood. Very interesting. Right? It says, V'nasati panai b'nefesh ha'ocheles es adam. V'charati osa b'kerevam. Right? He says, I'm going to set my face against the soul that eats blood. Now, the Or Chaim HaKadosh over here makes an interesting comment. And the Or Chaim HaKadosh here says, he says like this. He says, what's going on here? So he brings down from Medrash. And the Medrash says, it's talking about nefesh. Nasati panai ben nefesh ocheles. I'll set my face against the soul that eats it. Right? So what does the Medrash say? The Medrash says, when it's talking about the soul that eats it, who's he talking about? He's talking about an individual. Yeah, he's talking about not an individual, he's talking about an individual that eats it, not the community. In other words, I might think if an individual eats it, maybe we're going to say, go through Ravim said was that all Jews are intertwined. We're going to see that from the next part of the verse, right? We're going to see that because it says amongst his people. So obviously it has to be talking about Jews here, right? Not non-Jews, right? But in general, he says from the Medrash, what do we learn out? We learn out that it's talking about a yachid. It's talking about an individual. It's not talking about the community. Now, what might have thought what might I have thought? If you're going to tell me all Jews are intertwined, you got a Jew out there that eats blood, let's say on purpose, we'll make it easy. He ate blood on purpose, maybe the whole Jewish community gets cut off. Maybe that's what I would think. Comes along the Orchai Makadu says, no, this sin is not strong enough to cut off the entire community. Right? It's talking about an individual. Now, could there be sins that could cut off a community or, God forbid, wipe out the Jewish community? Where do we see that? That's pretty severe sin, though. Right? Where do we see that? Synagogue of the gas. Because God says, Book of Exodus, if I dwell amongst the people, God basically says, I will destroy them. So Moses makes a compromise. Moses says, okay, you decide to destroy them, take me out of the book also. Right? I also shouldn't be in the book. But, so they make a compromise. What's the compromise? God says, fine. Moses says, fine, don't dwell amongst the Jewish people. Take it out collectively on the Jewish people throughout history. In other words, punish the Jewish people throughout history for what they did. For what they did back then. Right now, a person will say, come on, collective punishment. Why should there be collective punishment? Something was done years ago. Right? Thousands of years ago. Isn't it true? We say the children will not pay for the sins of the parents. Yeah. They will get cursed because of what the parents did. Now, even though the Torah says just the opposite of what I said, right? Let's say better. That the child can be punished for the sins of the parents. When? When is that possible? The person will say, first of all, it's not fair. What the children do. Right? The children seemingly did nothing. Right? They didn't do anything wrong. Right? So they didn't do anything wrong. Why should there be punishment? Right? Why should there be punishment for the children? They didn't do anything wrong. Right? So we said before, there are repercussions. Right? There are repercussions for our actions. There are physical repercussions. There are spiritual repercussions. Physical repercussion, which we always say, a woman is pregnant and she smokes crack. She smokes crack and the kid comes out deformed. The kid's fault? No. Again, the kid's not punishable. It's what the soul has to go through, but it doesn't matter. The point is, there's punishment here. Right? In other words, there are repercussions. Right? If a woman does that, chances of her kid coming out deformed are pretty bad. Right? Are pretty good. So that could happen. That very well could happen. Now, if a Jew is with someone they're not allowed to be with, right, intimately, they have a child, that child's a mamzer. Now, that mamzer, that child, can only marry someone of the same union, right, because the soul was blemished here. Or a convert. Now, people are going to say, what, converts, second-class citizens? Again, they also have blemish, though. Right? Not their fault. They were non-Jews. Like, could be, at one point, their soul was Jewish, then it became non-Jewish through assimilation, intermarriage. Right? How does the soul become Jewish and non-Jewish? Good question. Kabbalah 101. Right? 101a. But understand, says Or Chaim HaKadosh, understands there is collective punishment for some things. In other words, the Jewish people will suffer for different things. Why? Because of what their ancestors did before. Whether the person thinks it's fair, it's not fair, that's the reality. Right? That is the reality. It comes on the Or Chaim HaKadosh over here and says, this sin about eating blood, that only applies to individuals. That does not apply. That's not going to apply to a community. Right? We're not going to knock out a lot of people, right, or an entire nation because they did this. Right? But at the same time, there are other things you see the Jewish people can suffer for. That doesn't mean everybody gets killed or everyone gets wiped down. But you can see, maybe a lot of people will. You see what happens. Bilam, the evil non-Jewish prophet, wants to curse the Jewish people, right? God doesn't allow him to. And in the end, he gets the Jewish people to sin with the women of Moab. Now, how many people died there? 24,000. So you say, well, that's not really collective punishment per se. Those people that sin were killed. Right? So you see, there are some things, let's say, less people will get killed, more people will get killed, or God forbid, a ton of people will get killed. This is the way of Jewish history, for right or for wrong. Right? You see that, by the Holocaust itself. Right? Most of the Jewish people in Europe were killed. Right? We don't know why. I mean, there are potential reasons why. We can't say it's the reason. There's a lot of assimilation, a lot of intermarriage, a lot of other things going on. You're not going to tell a Holocaust survivor that's why the family was killed and murdered and who knows what. Right? You're not going to say that's a decree. It was a divine decree where it's divine wrath, divine punishment. Yeah, there's no question. So they say, where are the rabbis? When the rabbis tell people to flee. By the time they realized what was going on, everything was sealed. All the borders were sealed. So this is something God wanted to happen. Destruction of the temple, same thing. It was a decree that was made, right? For sinas chinam, speaking lashon hara, unlawful hatred, whatever the sin was. But a good chunk of the Jewish people, because they weren't doing the right thing, got slaughtered. They marched them out, from Israel to Babylonia. You get out of line, they hacked you to death. It's like a trek of tears over here. They hacked you to death, right? Kept people in line. Yeah, so you learn, some of those Gemaras in Gittin, which we'll speak about. We speak about whatever. We speak about what do you call 3 weeks to 9 days destruction of the temple, right? 17th Tammuz, right? When I speak about that, you read those Gemaras over there, and you have to understand there were no machine guns, and all that. So the Gemara says how many people were killed. Now, some say it was 400,000, some say it was 4 million, some say it was 400 million, right? So probably weren't 400 million people in the world, right, at that time, but even so, right? Even if you want to say it's an exaggeration, what's the whole point? A lot of people were killed. That's the point. A lot of people were killed. Yeah. Well, they weren't just killed, they were slaughtered. Gemara says there was a river of blood from Beitar, where I live right now, or the area around here, let's say, to the Dead Sea. There's a river from here to the Dead Sea. Now, could be the Dead Sea was closer. I don't know. It's continental shifts. Things change, right? I can't say. But let's just say from here to the Dead Sea right now, it's a good hour and a half. Right? It's probably about a good hour and a half to get there. Yeah, that's a lot of blood. That's a lot of people being killed. And you see, the temple was destroyed. The Gemara says why. Right? Gemara tells us why. And we're still living there. Sinas chinam, unlawful hatred. Lashon hara, speaking badly against others. Punishment severe. Severe. Now, even if you want to say, okay, God made that decree, there was no way to get around the decree. That was a decree. Well, that's huge punishment. And what have we seen throughout Jewish history? Very simple. It's like a sine curve, right? It's like a sine curve. And remember, trigonometry, right? Jewish people do the right thing, they go way up. They do the wrong thing, they go down. It's a wave, right? They go up, they go down. They go up, they go down. So it says clear, second paragraph of the Shema, you do what you're supposed to do. God's going to take care of your needs, right? You're going to have food. Land will be good. You don't do what you're supposed to do, payback. There's going to be payback. Now, it could be payback on the individual. It could be payback on the community. But think about it. What we do affects others. Right? And when it's obvious, we don't have excuses. I'll tell you how far it goes. Ron Cutler, a blessed memory, I think I mentioned this before, but it's a good segue here. right? That Rav Aaron Kotler, blessed memory, started the Lakewood Yeshiva, made Lakewood into the Ir HaTorah, city of Torah, right? Probably one of the strongest Jewish communities in America. No question. So there, in Mishnah's Rebbe Aaron, right, one of his works on the holidays, and by Purim, he's going through Mordechai's lineage, and by going through his lineage, like whatever, he goes through different questions about what happened, why it had to be through Mordechai and how he merited, say Jewish people, different things. But he talked about something. I mentioned I went through this actually in my spiritual group coaching, but I'll just highlight a few things. That one of the things he said over there, which is a mind-boggling idea. Mind-boggling idea. We understand if a person causes someone damage, right? Let's say a person causes someone damage. Now, the right outlook is if someone caused you damage, so it must be that God is using that person to get to you, right? The Chosel says that in duties of the heart and in Chosel Vavos and gates of belief and faith in God. So God is using that person to get to you. Someone asked me last week, which we covered, if God is using Hamas as a stick, why they get punished? Because the answer is they did something wrong. Anyone does something wrong, God can use you. It doesn't mean you have free will. God can use you. You do something wrong, it's God's pain to someone else. Yeah, so you get punished, right? You got to say, but if that person looks at you as a stick, so he has to turn to God and say, okay, I must have sinned, but this person's guilty for whatever they did. Very good. Right? That's really the right outlook. It's kind of hard to see things that way, but that is the Torah outlook, as Chosel tells us. So comes along Mishnah's Rebbe Aaron, says Rav Aaron Kotler, a blessed memory over here. An amazing thing. He says, you see by Yaakov Avinu. You see by Yaakov that his mother dressed him up in Esav's clothes. He stole the blessing underhandedly. From that, we understand there's always going to be hatred between non-Jews and Jews, right? Esav so as Yaakov, Esav hates Jacob, just the way it is. And that's the way it's going to be till the end of days, till the Messiah comes. Very good. Sometimes better, sometimes worse. Probably going to get a lot worse before it gets better, right? But okay, so what happens? Yeah, so Yaakov dresses up like Esav in order to steal the blessing. Okay, now Rivka is a prophetess, so she understood the blessing should go to Yaakov, should not go to Esav. Why? Yitzhak wanted to give to Esav. Good question, not the topic here. But the point is, he dressed up as Esav. And he steals the blessing. Now we understand the blessing, deservedly so, goes to him. Right? Makes sense. Right? Esav didn't want the blessing. Well, I mentioned this last night in Pirkei Avos. Right? That's hard to understand. Esav grew up in the house of Isaac. He saw Abraham, he saw angels in his house. Right? So the short answer is desire killed him. Okay? Desire killed him. That's why his head is buried in the cave of the patriarchs, not his body. Because the Chidah, we mentioned more than 400 or 500 years ago, the Chidah himself said that Yaakov's Esav's 1,000 times greater than Yaakov. 1,000 times. That's pretty bad. 1,000 times? Maybe he didn't mean it. Maybe, just an exaggeration, but they were both the same. Couldn't tell the difference before they were bar mitzvah. Could not tell the difference. So says Rav Aaron over there. Rav Aaron says, what did Yaakov do? Yaakov listened to his mother. His mother had Ruach HaKodesh, divine inspiration, low form of prophecy. She had prophecy. She's doing what God wanted. This is what God wanted. Okay. So she did it this way. Could she have done it a different way? Maybe. Maybe she could have done it a different way. It says Rav Aaron over there. Rav Aaron says, look what happened. Yaakov, there was no confrontation here. He stole the blessing before, he got the blessing already, he sold it to him for a bowl of lentils. Okay. But now he steals it a second time. But when he steals it a second time, what happens? When he steals it a second time, punishment is more severe for himself. Why? And for different things he has to go through. Now why is that? Because says Rav Aaron, he did something that good old Uncle Asa made him cry. He's like, what? You don't have a blessing for me? Not one blessing? He still wanted a blessing, but Yitzhak gave everything to Yaakov. So poor Uncle Asa sheds a few tears. He shedded a few tears. Because of that, there's severe punishment for Yaakov and his offspring. You can say, but what did Yaakov do wrong? What in the world did he do wrong? His mother had prophecy. He listened to his mother, kibbud aim, honoring his mother. A person honors his parents properly, get long life in the next world. One of the only two mitzvahs that says that. The other mitzvah is Shuach HaKain, pushing away the mother bird, taking the eggs. You get long life in the next one. Right? Whatever that means. But here's an incredible thing. Yaakov didn't do anything wrong. Just the opposite. He listened to his mother. Says Rav Aaron there, because the pain was caused through him, even though he himself didn't do anything, but it was caused through him, even though this is what his mother told him to do, even though this is what divine providence told him to do, because his brother suffered from it, he gets punished. Mind-boggling idea. Mind-boggling idea. So Rav Aaron says, when it comes to what goes on in heaven, how God judges things, we don't have a clue. We do not have a clue. Because everyone's going to say he didn't do anything wrong. He did nothing wrong. What was coming to him was coming to him. Okay, maybe Rivka could have done it in a different way. Maybe to spare her son a little bit of anguish. Okay, maybe. But Yaakov didn't do anything wrong. Comes along Rav Aaron and says, because of what he did, even though he didn't really do anything, he listened to his mother. The punishment comes through him. Why? Because through him, he caused Esav pain. And there are repercussions for that for generations. For generations. Right? If any one of us would have said it, we said, come on. Everyone would agree. He didn't do anything wrong. He listened to his mother. She had prophecy. How can a person think he's going to get punished or his offspring going to get punished? He didn't do anything. He did nothing. He did nothing. So nonetheless, we see that what our forefathers do is a sign for their children. Right? It's a Sibin Labani. Sign for future generations. You're going to say, but what do I care what he did? 3,500, 4,000 years ago. Right? Or 5,000 years ago, whatever it is. Why should there be repercussions for that? Or maybe for some other things. I can understand that generation. Yeah, because of sin of the spies, you see, that generation had to die out in the desert. They had to walk around China to get out. 40 years. Okay, so that I understand. That generation died out because they spoke Lashon Hara against Eretz Yisrael, right? They spoke badly against the land of Israel. Lack in Amunah, right? Some level of lack of Amunah. These great people, very hard to understand. But what happened further? So the Gemara says, these people look like in your eyes like giants. You don't think you can overcome them. I took you out of Egypt. I did all these miracles, right? So some level lack of Amunah. But you don't think I can, that you're going to be able to handle it, conquer them. God says, you're crying over here? Crying about these giants? I'll give you something to cry about. I'll give you something for all generations to cry about. Right? And what was that? What was that structure of the temple? Tisha B'Av. The Gemara says, you're crying for nothing. Because you're lacking in Amunah, very good, or not so good. You're lacking in Amunah, okay. Generations later, you're going to have the Holocaust start on that time. You're going to have the destruction of the temple. Sorry, both destructions of first temple, second temple on that day. Jews thrown out of Spain, same day. A lot of catastrophes happened to the Jewish people on that day. It's a very bad day. Very, very bad day. Very solemn day. Right? So anyone wants to commemorate the Holocaust, that's the time to do it. Even though, they have a day, for that. They're going to have a day here also commemorating people that fell in the wars. Right? So so what do? They make a siren. 10 o'clock in the morning, everyone stops the car, gets out, puts their head down like a bunch of idiots. That's how they're commemorating, it's a Goyish custom. Right? A moment of silence. No, it's got no room it's got no room at all, in Judaism. So a person never stuck in that situation, what do? Say Tehillim, say something in Torah. Remember something in Torah in their memory. Don't just sit there like a dolt, like an idiot with your head down. That's what Goyim do. I'm not interested in what Goyim do. We're interested in what Jews are supposed to do. Right? It's not a Jewish thing. Right? Let's just say like that. Right now, without even getting into all that, you see how careful a person has, their actions are and what the repercussions are, even if seemingly they didn't do anything. But since it happened through them, and the other person felt bad or was slighted or whatever through you, but you didn't really do anything, you get punished. And you might get punished severely. Right? It's a mind-boggling idea. It's a mind-boggling idea that's how far repercussions go. We can easily say, come on, Esav had a connection. He had a connection to spirituality. So what do we care? He had shed a few tears. Good for him. The loser that he is. Good for him. Yeah, let him shed a few tears. He's not evil. Look what he brought to the world. Represents the Western world. No great shakes. Certainly no great shakes. So we shed a few tears. God says, caused someone to shed a few tears. Doesn't matter where they're holding in the world, but you're the conduit that caused it, even if you didn't do anything. Payback. There is payback. Again, it's an incredible idea. We would never think of such a thing. Need great people to tell us this. We never would have thought of this. Because again, what did he do wrong? Seemingly did nothing wrong. Did nothing wrong. But it's through him that caused pain. Okay? Right? Caused them pain. Like we care what happened to Esau. So what? Gotta care. Or they gotta care, even if they cause someone pain, even if it's not directly through them. Yeah. Comes the Chaim Kadosh over here, and he says, what would I have thought? Says the Medrash, what would I have thought? Someone who eats blood, maybe the whole community gets cut off. So again, we mentioned there are things that the community gets severely punished for. There's collective punishment. What a Jew does has repercussions for other Jews. What's the definition, technical definition of a desecration of God's name? See, people throw this term a lot. They don't really know what it means. First of all, it has to be done in front of 10 Jews. Right? That's technical definition. But, if a person does the wrong thing, say, oh, that's desecration of God's name. Nah, it's wrong, right? Let's say. It's wrong. Desecration of God's name? Maybe. Right, Rashi at the end of Yuma says, what's the desecration of God's name? Or, let's say better, the Gemara says, according to one of the rabbis, right, if he went to a store to buy meat, and he bought it on credit, for him, that's desecration of God's name. Got to pay in full at the beginning. Someone else said, if I don't walk within 4 arm lengths wearing towels and tefillin, that's desecration of God's name. Yeah, everyone according to their level. Rashi comes along and says, you know what desecration of God's name is? Someone sees what you do, and what you did is wrong, and they learn bad things from you. That's desecration of God's name. They see an Orthodox Jew cut someone off on the road. They see them not wait in line properly. Whatever bad character trait you want to put up. This is what they did. So I'm going to say, wow, that's how Orthodox Jews act. This is what they do. Now, again, if it's wrong, makes us look bad. Makes everybody look bad. You don't see that by anyone else. You don't see that by any other nation. Imagine in Brooklyn, an Italian in Brooklyn did something wrong. What are you going to say? Burn down Italy? No more cannolis? No. You go against all Italians, you're being racist against any group. Right? So let's say you don't see that. An Asian person does something, say death to the Asians. Some people might. Yeah. Well, how can a person malign a whole group? Right? That we call racism 101. But again, that's not really the point here. Right? The point is that by other nations, there's no collective punishment. Usually. By Jews, there's always collective punishment. It doesn't matter who does it. Secular Jew can do something wrong, everybody pays the price. Right? Everybody pays. Give one example. They had Mr. Trosky. Mr. Trosky was a cheder yingel. Went to a Jewish school. Because of different things he was doing, what did they do? They threw him out. Comes on the Chofetz Chaim. Chofetz Chaim says, if a child you have to throw out of school, you got to find him an appropriate place, but you got to be very, very, very careful. Unless they're having like such a bad influence on everybody else. But you got to be very, very careful. You throw a child out from school. Even if they deserve it, right? You got to find them a place to learn. Because if not, who knows what could become of them? Trotsky, back in the day, went to cheder, went to a Jewish school, was learning Torah. And it went off. Same way because of what happened. Didn't have a good taste in his mouth from rabbis, from Torah, from Judaism in general. And what was he? One of the founders of communism. Kind of ironic. You think about it. And look at the effect it's had on the world. Right? Look at the negative effects. I don't know too many positives. Right? Yeah, I know a bunch of people here that grew up in the former Soviet Union and whatever. They don't have anything good to say. Nothing. Nothing. Yeah. What they've done in the world. Yeah. Atheism 101. 101A. But who started it? That's the thing. Who started it? This kid called Trosky. And he went to a Jewish school. They threw him out, probably for good reason. Probably a good reason. Probably having a bad influence, this and that. So you can say, what can we do? We can't have this kid here. So there was a famous story, I forget with who the rabbi was, but there was a student the head of the yeshiva wanted to throw out. It's having negative influence. It's having negative influence, but a lot of the guys in the yeshiva didn't want him to be thrown out. They said, we're not learning from him, whatever, he's really not such a bad guy, blah, blah, blah. They didn't know what to do. Right? There was like almost like a mutiny, so to speak. So I sent a telegram back in the day. Sent a telegram to Rav Chaim Brisker, father of the Brisker Rav. Rav Yisrael Soloveitchik, a blessed memory, right? One of Torah giants, the last generation. His father was Rav Chaim Brisker, famous Rav Chaim Brisker. So he sent this question again. I forget who the rabbi was. It was that happened to, and he sent this question to Rav Chaim Brisker. Rav Chaim Brisker sent him 3 words. He sent him a telegram, 3 words. Soger hayeshiva miyat. Translation: close the yeshiva immediately. That's what he did. Went to a different city, started a yeshiva from scratch. Because if you're going to have that kind of problem, right, and the students don't want this guy to leave because they like him in different things, Chaim Brisker said, you don't leave the yeshiva intact. Shut it. You shut it. That's what he did. But again, it's interesting. I'll give another example, I think a more potent example. To take JC, right? So the whole question, if the JC and the Talmud and the uncensored Gemara is talking about him or whether he did exist, didn't exist, whatever, doesn't really matter. They say, Gemara says he was a student of Rabbi Shua ben Prachi. Right? Some say it was the wrong time period, whatever, but this is how it goes. Rabbi Shua ben Prachi had a student. This was, right? We'll just say for argument's sake, he was one of his students. Now, Rabbi Shua ben Prachi went to an inn. And this person made a negative comment. A seriously negative comment. Yeah? To his Rebbe. And he threw him out. He's like, you scumbag, get out of here. Threw him out. Came back to beg for forgiveness, threw him out. Came back a second time to beg for forgiveness. He threw him out. The third time, he was begging for forgiveness. Rabbi Shua ben Prachi was in the middle of saying the Shema. Now, in certain places, when you're saying the Shema, you cannot stop. You cannot speak. You're not allowed to answer anyone. Even if they're a king, can't answer them. So he would have accepted him in his heart. He accepted his repentance. But he didn't have enough time to speak, and he left. Jason, he said, oh, that's what the rabbis are, whatever, and he left. And as they say, the rest is history. Now, Rabbi Shua ben Prachi is taking the task here a little bit. Said just draw, push away with the right, draw close with the left, or the other way around. It could be I got it backwards. Whatever it is, he's taking the task. Should have pushed him that hard. Now, it's very interesting. I don't know if I have a good answer here. But it's very interesting if that's who it happened to. Let's say, for argument's sake, the person he pushed away very hard was JC. Let's say. You want to tell me because of that? Okay, he was harsh. But he made a disgusting comment. A lewd comment. to his Rebbe, one of the Torah giants of generation. One of the great rabbis of generation, and make a disgusting comment. Should have slapped him is what he should have done. Yeah, I say, oh, that's too harsh. Very good. So what happened over here? Pushed him too hard. But he would have accepted him in the end. When he pushed him too hard, and even if he would have accepted him, and he couldn't because he was in the middle of the Shema, JC did what he did. Now, you can tell me, he didn't become as great as he was, or as great as they claim he was. It's hundreds of years later, it was through his disciples, whatever. Whatever it may be. Because he went off and went sour. He absolutely went sour. Look how many Jews have died in his name. Thousands. Thousands. Did he have coming what Yeshua ben Prachi gave him? Yes. You make a disgusting comment to your Rebbe, yeah, that's unforgivable. Should be unforgivable. But you say, listen, the person repented. He should have forgave him at some point. Right? The Mishnah in Perkei Avos, which I don't know if we're going to speak about next week, or part of it. Right? We were speaking about last night about repenting one day before your death. And the end of the Mishnah says, like I said, I'm not sure we're going to get there next week, but we'll see. It says, warm yourself by the fire of the sages, but beware lest you be burned by its embers. Their bite is bite of a fox, sting is the sting of a scorpion, hiss is the hiss of a serpent. All the words are like fiery coals. Yeah, what does this mean? Right? I'm not going to give away what I'm going to speak about. There's a lot to speak about there. Right? There's a lot to speak about there. But simple explanation is you could be warmed up by their fire. Right? In other words, the rabbi has the ability to draw people close. Draw a lot of people close. Right? But you got to remember, there has to be respect. If you think you know better, again, doesn't mean the rabbi's perfect? No. But some people think, obviously, they know better. Even if they have no knowledge. Or very little knowledge. Right? Seen this many times. Yeah. Oh, you don't know this. Oh, you didn't know that. Yeah, plenty of things. Plenty of things we don't know. Plenty of things we do know. Yeah. But when you show disrespect, you get burned. If you're telling me it's your average Jew, one thing. It's one thing. Yeah? Still have to show respect. For sure you have to show respect. It's called Kavod Abrios. You have to show respect. But if it's someone who represents Torah, and I'm not saying they've done anything egregious here. Yeah. Maybe the other person thinks, oh, I don't like that explanation. Yeah. They think they got a better explanation. Whatever. Whatever it may be. I had somebody stop taking the questions. Because every time they ask a question, I give an answer. They say, yeah, but this rabbi says like this. Or someone else says like that. So why are you asking me? You want a rabbi shop? Go rabbi shop. I'm not here to be rabbi shop. You had a question in Jewish law. There's an answer. Yes, maybe it's permissible. Maybe it's not permissible. Maybe it depends, different circumstances. Okay. Could depend on a lot of things. Very good. But it's a different opinion among rabbinic authorities. Good. So why are you asking? Right? After that, I stopped taking questions. I'm like, I asked them. So why are you asking me the question? Because every time this person asks the question, he's like, yeah, but someone else says like this. Well, why don't you hold like this? You want me to go through the entire thing, which you're not going to have a clue about? You don't know the background. You don't even know what the question is, really. Right? That's not showing respect. Person asks a question, good, they deserve an answer. But if they think they know what the answer is, or they got a better answer, then why are you asking the question? I think it's very simple. Either you want to show off knowledge that you may or may not have, right? Or you want to knock someone out. Say, oh, come on, you really think that's true? Seen it. There are people with no knowledge. You got big mouths. Seriously, big mouths. But whatever. That part of the mission probably going to speak a lot about. So again, does that mean, we're all perfect? No. Doesn't mean that. Do we all have what to work on? Sure. There's no question. What's the idea? The idea is person is a power of influence, got to be very careful. Very, very careful. Here you take two people, right? Well, we'll go in the order here. JC and Mr. Trosky. You take two people. Two people, and look at the havoc they cause in the world. Look what communism did in the world. Got a maniac Stalin killed 40 million people. 40 million people. Guy's a maniac. No question. And how many Jews killed in JC's name? More, probably. Tens of thousands, millions. And they weren't killed, tortured, or whatever. Look at the repercussions here. Now, in either case, you could say, well, the one who disciplined Trosky, it's too harsh. They should have found him another plan, another place to go. They shouldn't have just thrown him out. Right? These things are not so easy to judge. Because if you have a school, you're educating other people, person's having negative influence is a problem. Question is, what do you do? And if you have to throw them out, as many, certainly in this generation, will say, if you have to throw them out, you have to find them a way to succeed. You have to find them a place that's better for them. Without basically saying, you can't stay here, you're a nuisance, whatever, but you're willing to change, blah, blah, blah. Right? You got to do it in a with wisdom over here. Well, someone gets burned by the system. Yeah, the repercussions of doing so could be catastrophic. This is what the Chofetz Chaim said. So he said they should have done anything else but that, or found them a place, or whatever the better solution was. But look at the repercussions. Look at the repercussions here. At the end of the day, communism, big problem. Big, serious problem. Look how many tens of thousands, millions of Jews it took away from Torah mitzvahs. Because they couldn't properly keep Torah mitzvahs. It's either be like us or you go into Siberia. And there were people through Mesiras Nefesh. There were a tremendous amount of self-sacrifice. Yeah, we're able to pass it down to the next generation. But guess what? Tens of thousands, millions of Jews don't know, Russian Jews don't know aleph-base. They don't know. They're brought up as atheists. Brought up to be good communists. Yeah. All because you go back in time. All because the fact that Trotsky was thrown out of school. Now again, did they have a right to do it? Sure they did. Sure they had good reasons. Look how many people killed in JC's name. The common denominator is both were, they were too strong. As great as Rebbe Yeshua ben Prachya was, they shouldn't have pushed him so hard. He deserved to be pushed. I don't think there's any question about that. He deserved to be disciplined. You don't make a disgusting comment to one of the Torah giants and don't think, and think, oh, we're going to be buddy-buddy. Yeah. Or there are people who put you down, let's say, and they'll say, well, This has nothing to do with, our friendship. What do you mean it doesn't? You just knock someone on the keister. Yeah. You just knock them out of the park. You just hit them like below the belt, let's say. And say, oh, but that's not personal. You got a screw loose. What do you mean not personal? Or not gonna take it, don't be so sensitive. What do you mean? You just made a statement, seriously negative statement. Thing has nothing to do with another. Yeah. But it's not personal. I don't know. I don't think it works like that. But in any case, Or Chaim, this is a bunch of questions here. Or Chaim Akadosh here says, talking about eating blood, getting spiritually cut off. It's not talking about the community. It's talking about an individual. Very good. Very good. But there are certain things the community could get cut off, or other things that could get wiped out. Is it a coincidence? We'll just throw this out there. Is it a coincidence? Jews, in Berlin, at the time, 80% into marriage, took out going back, took out the prayer book, going back to Zion, going back to Jerusalem, rebuilding the temple. So no, we don't want to offend anyone. We're very happy being here in Berlin. Now, someone might say, well, it's an interesting coincidence that the Holocaust happened there. Things don't happen in a vacuum, right? This is something we can see measure for measure. Now, is that the only reason? No, it's probably not the only reason. I would say it's probably a good reason, added with a bunch of other reasons also potentially to say why it happened there. But you make such a statement like that, and you want to say, we're not going back to Jerusalem. We're very happy here being in exile. Right? It goes against everything the Torah says. We're very happy being in exile. Not only that, we're extremely happy being here in Berlin. Look what they've given us. Look what we've done, blah, blah, blah. Look what God did over there. Brought Mr. Hitler, Yimach Shemo V'Zichro. Brought him into power. Right? Never make fun of his painting, right? Brought him into power. Look how charismatic he was. Blamed all the Jews. You had all the intellectuals, right? Joined the Third Reich. You had lawyers, doctors, etc. Not the skinheads of today. Yeah, and they said it's better to treat a dog better than a Jew. God, so even secular Jews couldn't imagine that. Listen, we eat your food, we go to your games, we watch your entertainment, we fought in your wars, married your women. What's the problem? We're just like you. No. They made clear we're not like them. That they're better. They're pure. We deserve to be squashed like an ant. Now, there had to be something really seriously bad going on for that kind of decree. It's not going to answer up a Holocaust survivor and why they had to go through it. It was a decree. But it was a horrific decree on Eastern Europe, on European Jewry in general, not just in Eastern Europe, all over. There was some unbelievable divine decree. Now, can we try and make heads and tails out of it? Why? Potentially, but we don't know why for sure. But I would think very simply, you see what's going on there, what they're saying, yeah, they, you can say they had it coming. Look what they did. Look where they sit. Now, wasn't everybody like that? Well, everybody. There are plenty of Jews, God-fearing Jews weren't saying that. So some say the fact is they didn't protest. People didn't protest against this. People didn't protest against desecration of Shabbos. So we don't protest, even though great rabbis' generation will say that's not what we do. The Gemara says that's what you should do. Right? The fact there was no protest, that's why it happened. Potentially why it happened. Because if you don't protest, right? There's a Talmudic dictum, shtika kohodadam. If you're quiet, it's like you agree. You're going to say they didn't agree. They totally disagree with the Orthodox Jews. Very good. So why didn't they say something? Why didn't they protest? Why are they quiet? So they're guilty by association. Same thing, I won't get into politics here, but a similar thing where if you have Orthodox Jews in government here in Israel, and this desecration of Shabbos going on right underneath their noses, how can they stay there? They can say they're going to be in the government, they can't let it fall, you need this, that, right? But they know what's going on. So obviously they're getting something out of it to stay in the government. Now, other people would say if they're in the government, they should be in the government. It's better they be in the government than not, because it would be a lot worse. True. It would be a lot worse. Right? That I would agree. Be a lot worse. Okay. Now, if that's true, if that's true, the other side would say, but if you're part of the government, you're guilty by association. Person will get upstairs after 120 years. God's going to say, look at all the Shabbos desecration. He goes, I didn't desecrate Shabbos. Where did I desecrate Shabbos? Right? And then God shows you the videos. Oh, remember, you were part of the government. Because you were part of the government, they had all this desecration of Shabbos. And these idiots were saying, no, it's because nefesh, saving lives, which it's not. He didn't do anything because you got kickbacks, whatever the kickbacks were. Whether it's favors, whether it's money, whatever it is, guilty by association. So again, what's their excuse going to be? What's their excuse going to be? They're going to say it's better we were there than we weren't there. But this desecration of Shabbos going on right in front of your nose, under your watch, you don't do anything about it. You don't do anything about it, knocks you out. Right? You're in serious trouble. So I would agree. If you're not part of the government or whatever. So yeah, it could be a lot worse. True. Very, very true. But you want to be guilty by association? I don't think people want to be guilty by association. Certainly not. Nonetheless, there are things a person be guilty of if they didn't do anything. They're just guilty because they're there. They happen to be there, right? Let's say, right? They happen to be there. So if that's, if that's true, if that's true, then there could be collective punishment. Very good. Right? There could be collective punishment. Otherwise, it should be an individual thing over here. So, question. Yeah, I'll take some questions here. 1 second. Let's see what's question here. One question is, 1 second. Someone says, I heard that if you're friends with secular Jewish person, it's an abomination. What if I'm in the process of conversion, right? Even a person that convert, yeah. Let's say like this. Abomination is a very strong word. Abomination is only used by certain sins. One of those sins happens to be homosexuality. Now, it doesn't call the person an abomination, because the act is an abomination. So that's the whole question. The person has those thoughts, they don't act on it. So you're right, this person's not an abomination. It's still not a good thing. Very good. What's the problem being friendly with secular Jewish people? What's the problem? Most likely, they got bad values. Yeah. Most likely, they probably speak Lashon Hara. They probably curse. Right? So, yeah, it could be, a bad influence. So you say, well, one of them a JIT, one of them a Jew in training. If a person As we friendly, they be trying to bring them back, right? Teach them a little bit about Judaism. It's one thing, right? It's one thing. It may be successful, it may not be successful. Okay. But a person has to be careful with their friendly. Yeah. Let's say like this. If you're a Jew, you're an Orthodox Jew. So there are plenty of Orthodox Jews out there that are very insular. They don't want to have conversations with secular Jews if they don't have to. Yeah, maybe some people are afraid they may ask me something I don't know. Maybe. So then you say, okay, I'm not sure. Not the world's greatest rabbinic scholar. I'll look it up. Very good. But some people don't want to have that influence. They don't want to have that influence on them. They don't want it on their kids. That's why some people will not invite secular Jews for a Shabbos meal, a festival meal. They're afraid what's going to come out of their mouths. Makes sense. Right? They want to keep their kids more insular. Very hard to be insular today, but let's say they want to keep their kids more insular. Okay. Now, there's another opinion. Another opinion is no, just the opposite. You should have people at your Shabbos table. Be good for your kids to see, what other people have done within reason, to show why the Torah is true and all that. Right? It's catch-22. Some people say it's good. Some people say it's bad. Right? Now, what about a non-Jew? Right? What about a JIT, a Jew in training? When we say it's good for them to be friendly with secular Jews, so it depends. Remember, even if you say it's permissible, it's not a problem, doesn't come under any of the Noahide laws. What about a moral imperative? What's the moral imperative? They'll have a negative influence. More than you influence them, they'll influence you. Right? And the people will say, there'll be people that say, can be friendly with, non-religious Jews. They won't affect me. It's not true. Definitely not true. I can be friendly with them and not learn from their actions. Like they're the most righteous of the generation. I don't think so. Right? If you're trying to draw them closer, there's ways to do it. And the mistake some people make in Jewish outreach is they go according to the lowest common denominator. In other words, they'll go in the muck, so to speak, in the dirt. So they'll show that look, this person goes to a ball game. This person does this. Oh, it's pretty cool. I can be an Orthodox Jew and do that. You can't dilute the Torah. Forbidden to dilute the Torah. Now, someone say, come on, going to a ball game, what's the big deal? Right? If you're a woman, you don't have an obligation to learn Torah in many ways. So it shouldn't affect them. Okay, what about guys? Well, they could have learned Torah. So maybe you can say the biggest transgression is what? It's wasting time when I could have learned Torah. Okay. Let's say it's not a problem of immodesty and all that. Okay. Right? Maybe that's the biggest issue. Maybe that's the biggest issue. Does a JIT, a Jew in training, do they have to be worried about such a thing? Right? Are you going to be punished for that? So no, I don't think you're going to be punished for that. I think you got to realize, again, it depends what track you're going on. If it's just in general conversation, you happen to meet somebody, whatever, okay. If you're trying to draw them closer, it's another issue. If you're friendly with them because you think they have values, and then you think they have, positive values you could gain from, that I would probably beg to differ. Right? That I would say is not a good thing. You're going to get punished for it? No. I wouldn't say you're going to get punished for it, but again, it's a very slippery slope where a person get involved with such a person and they'll pay a price. They will pay a price. They will go down in their spiritual level. Right? And have less influence on the other person. And that, again, statistically, I don't know what the stats are over here, but I would say, unless a person's really, really strong, their resolve will be weakened. Their resolve will be weakened. So are you going to pay a price for it? Are you going to get punished for it? No. That I wouldn't go so far. So even as a moral imperative, I would say, it's probably not an issue. But I would say, one of the things you got to always ask yourself is this going to be good for me or not? If you have no choice, let's say it's a family member, you're in contact, whatever, it's one thing, or you minimize contact, whatever it may be. If it's something you're advocating, if it's something you're going after, yeah, then I would say it's a problem. All right. Unless that person is growing in their Judaism or whatever. It's a different issue. But in general, be friendly, get hammered for this on other sides. Right. In general, being friendly with secular people make the mistake. I mentioned this before. People make the mistake and think, well, they're nice people. They could be. They could be very nice people. But we're not looking at it whether they're nice according to what we think is nice. We're looking at it from the perspective, are they nice according to what God thinks is nice? Are they going in God's ways the way they should? And what's the answer going to be? Usually, no. So then I'll ask another question. I'm good at asking questions here, right? The other question is, if that's going to be the case, then why would you be friendly with them? If it's going to be, again, to draw them closer, whatever, it's one thing, right? But they don't have the same values, right? See, this is the problem. This is the problem when it comes to family. This is the problem when it comes to friends in general, Jews, non-Jews. Doesn't really matter. The more we get into Torah and mitzvahs, the less we have any connection to them. It's just, that's what happens. You don't have anything in common. And if you had less things in common before, you even have much less things in common now. Now, does that mean you have to chuck every family relationship? No. Some of them are toxic. I would say, yeah, it's better to chuck it. Nothing good's going to come out of it. Well, let's say, again, you have no choice. You're in contact with certain people. Okay. Yeah. What they say is harmful in many ways. Right? A person will say, come on. You really think that? Person's that weak? Right? It's not a question of person being weak. It's the question of when you let certain things in that should never be let in, that has an effect. That's the problem. So they go about doing what they do. It doesn't really matter to them. You're now affected in a negative way. Yeah. So the question we always have to ask is this going to be good for me or not good for me? Now, sometimes you have no choice. Sometimes 100% you have no choice. You have no choice. So you got to be careful. 100%, you got to be careful. I was in the States a couple of years ago. And no choice being around certain people. Okay. Yeah. Some of the conversations are pretty pathetic. I had no choice. Absolutely had no choice. But I would say that, what did it show beyond the shadow of a doubt? What did it show? These people are nothing. They have nothing to offer. They might be the nicest of people. They might even be family. They might even be longtime family friends. Okay. But ask yourself the question, what in the world do you have in common with them now? I have people I'm still in contact with, over the years. I have nothing in common. When I became religious, I never, whatever, you just drift apart because you don't have anything in common. Even if I can speak to them about politics and this and that and have a normal conversation with them, we still have nothing in common. Essentially, we have nothing in common. So that's the question. So what's the benefit? If the benefit is you're going to draw them close, you're working with them, this and that, very good. Right, but you got to keep a distance. They come to you. They come to your environment, not the other way around. Right? And I remember someone told me they had, they asked me what I thought about. They had this big, Chabad had this, whatever, certain place had big Hanukkah lighting menorah. They had this big menorah, right? I don't know, by the Chabad house or so. I think it was somewhere in public, I forget where it was. And right afterwards, I went to a hockey game. They asked me what I thought. And I was like, this is exactly against what Hanukkah stands for. Okay, you lit the candles, very good. But in a public place, that's the whole question, whether you should or not. Rather, whether they should or not. They do it, okay. Yeah, they do it. I said, but, I was never into hockey that much, so take this with a grain of salt. But, going to a sporting event, afterwards, I understand why they're doing it. Yeah, is that really the spirit of Hanukkah? Isn't that the opposite of what Hanukkah is all about? Going to the way of the Greeks. That's what the Greeks represented. Sports. entertainment. That's what they represented. So I said, what in the world are you doing going to a hockey game? No, but that's what they did. It's okay, I got the point. I mean, I hammered the point some more, to, make it a little more graphic. But, do I understand why they might have done it? Why Chabad had this outing? Listen, if you tell me the modern Orthodox, so then I don't have an issue. I don't have an issue because they think there's no problem going to a ball game. They don't think there's any issue. What's the problem going to a movie? What's the issue? Oh, the way they speak, the way they curse, and immorality, modesty issues. Okay, there are a lot of issues. Yeah, they're not going to a ball game. They don't have an issue. For sure, they don't have an issue. So that I can hear. So that absolutely I can hear. Right? That makes sense. That makes sense. Right? But if you're going to tell me, if you're going to tell me, from them, okay, I don't have an issue. Because I know what their mentality is. They don't have this issue. Right? Going to a ball game. Forget about watching on TV, it's a different issue. Go into it, they don't have an issue. They have no issue. Someone told me in Baltimore, seventh inning, there's mincha, imagine over the loudspeaker, peanuts, popcorn, mincha. Right? I have to pray with Seaboard, pray with with the community. So if I'm at the ball game, again, this is the mentality. If I'm at the ball game, got to pray. Very good. Who says you should be there? But okay. He said, if I'm already there, yeah. Very good. Yeah. You're already there, so you got to pray with the minion. Good. Got me. Got to pray with the minion. Ha. Okay. So, who says you should be there? So if you're telling me, it's that mentality, I have no questions. I have no question. I think it's wrong, but I understand the mentality. Now, if you're telling me Chabad, their big thing is drawing Jews closer to Judaism, they'll help out potential converts also, or JITs as I would call them. Okay. So good. So they want to make people feel good. They have this, I think they'd be more of a problem to do it because of all the anti-Semitism. But let's say they have this public lighting in the menorah. Okay. Yeah. And then you're going to go to do what the Greeks do. Again, depends what your mentality is. If you're telling me there's nothing wrong with it, you're modern Orthodox, I don't have a question. If you're supposed to be stronger than that in your Judaism, and I get it, you want to draw Jews closer to Judaism, it makes sense. So you have this outing, okay. But you're going to them, not the other way around. So figure out another event. You're going to bring people in. Can't think of any other event. You got no one else. Think of any other event you could bring them to that's going to give them good values of Judaism. Get a PR person. I don't know. Hire someone. That's not Jewish outreach. That's sucking up to the lowest common denominator. Now, people will say, what's so wrong with that? You got to hit them where they are. Yeah? You don't talk with the Torah. That's a mistake. Again, I'm not saying all Chabad people do this. I'm just saying, there's one example. Right? So, I was not going to get to all this, Chabad, Chabad people say, no, we don't do that. And when you're picking on Chabad, no, this is one incident. One incident. I'm not saying it's across the board, that's what they do. The modern Orthodox community, yeah, that's what they do. That's what they do. They don't have an issue with it. They're not going to take issue with what I said. They agree. Going to movies, they agree. They're not going to disagree. They're not going to disagree over here. Right? But again, the question is, what do I want to look like? Right? Where's the influence here? If you tell me you got no choice, it's family or whatever, okay, so you got to deal with them at some level. Okay? If a person makes a conscious choice And they think I'm just not going to learn from their actions, right? But I can hang out with them. They're making a mistake, right? My Rebbe would say clear. Having any conversation with these people can cause you damage. Cause you damage. Says it all the time. But sometimes you have to deal with these people. Okay. To make a choice. Going to hang out with people that are diametrically opposed to Judaism? A secular Jews? If I didn't have to, why would I? Why in the world would you? They'll have more of an influence on you than you on them. If a person's doing it the right way, they're drying their clothes in the right way, it's a different issue. It's a different issue. But this is one of the strengths and the weaknesses of Chabad. I just mentioned Chabad now. A lot of times they go into these areas, there are Jews there, but they're in the middle of nowhere. And for a long time, they don't have, they can't pray with 10 men. They live in that type of community. It takes time to build up and all this. I was in a community in Florida for, a couple years ago, and there was a rabbi there, been there, whatever was Chabad, been there for 10 years, more. Saturday night after Shabbos, couldn't get him in. Been there for more than 10 years. 10 years is a long time. You're not in a place where there aren't any Jews. There are Jews all over. Right? A lot of them secular. Okay, people choose to live in these areas. If anyone's ever been stuck in a place, and they end up going to Chabad, very good. They're very welcoming. Okay. Right? Putting themselves out there in the middle of nowhere, I don't think is the greatest thing. In some ways it is. Some ways it strengthens their kids, but their kids at a very young age, send them out because they can't be educated there. Yeah. Not only that, there's another issue. And the other issue is stunts their growth spiritually because they go out way too young. Some of them. Some of them have real knowledge, real class knowledge. Not going to knock that. On the other hand, some go out before they should. And that's a knock against them. Because you got to be ready. Doesn't mean you have to have world-class knowledge. Not everyone can sit and learn forever. Okay. That's true. But that's their big thing. Go in the middle of nowhere. Wherever they're needed. Okay. Can't stunt your spiritual growth at the same time. Right? I've heard that from much greater people than me. So that's not, it's going, oh, that's your opinion. No. But a lot of great people say that. They do a lot of good work. I have a lot of respect for what they do. When you go in the middle of nowhere, you have no community. It's kind of hard. That's what I would say. That's what I would say on that. Somebody asks, let me see. Somebody asks, well, people look at you, think that you are so arrogant and say that yourself's not Jewish. Why is that being arrogant? I wish more people would say it. Right? But I think non-Jews do say it. Say, wow, you're so from this and that. And say, yeah, but I'm not Jewish. That's not arrogance. Or if you're telling me you're saying that they're not Jewish, so that might be an issue, right? Let's make clear: if a person's mother's Jewish, they have proof, then they're Jewish. If there's a quasi conversion, that's a problem. Fake conversion, let's say, so that'd be a problem. But secular Jews look at Orthodox Jews, say, oh, we're not Jewish. If your mother's Jewish, you're Jewish. Now, technically speaking, they desecrate Shabbos in public, or they do other things, they have the status of a non-Jew. Doesn't mean they can't repent. There's always repentance. But we're not looking at them and saying, oh, they're not, that's what they think. That's what they think. It's a big misnomer. Because they think, oh, we say they're not Jewish, or I'm not Jewish enough. Listen, if you do what God says, in God's eyes, there don't have any problem. I'm not here to judge. Yeah, if we do hold that a secular Jew does great Shabbos in public, loses their status as being a Jew, that's a problem. That is a serious problem. Yeah, and that's what we hold, practically speaking. Now, does that mean they can't repent? They can repent. They for sure can repent. And if they don't repent, they're in trouble. But does that mean I think I'm better? I think there are people that are arrogant and think they are better than non-Jews, secular Jews. They think they're better than non-Jews because they're born Jewish. So they got a chip on their shoulder. That's also wrong. What makes the Jewish people special? Why did God choose us? Because we chose him. We chose him to keep Torah mitzvahs. We didn't choose him to eat shrimp or lobster or clams or oysters or other things. We chose him to keep what he said we should keep. That's why we chose him. So if someone thinks they're better, if a Jew thinks they're better than a non-Jew just because they were born Jewish, but they don't keep Torah mitzvahs, then they're arrogant. Right? That's racism. That's exactly what racism is. Now, are there things that non-Jews we mentioned before, mentioned the last number of weeks? Non-Jews are not on the same level. They're not. They're not on the same level of the soul. Okay. Can they have a portion of the world to come? Yes. Right, this last week. They can have a portion of the world to come. Because even if someone doesn't convert, who cares if they don't convert? If they keep the Noahide laws, right, and they repented for going against the Noahide laws, they can have a portion of the world to come. Is it going to look the same as the Jews? No, and it shouldn't. Why? Because Jews have many more mitzvahs. But if a person has a chip on the shoulder thinking I'm better than a non-Jew because I was born a Jew, but they don't keep Torah mitzvahs, and even if they do keep Torah mitzvahs, that means to say, I have a chip on my shoulder think I'm better? They can take all my mitzvahs as much as they want. Let them take on all my obligations. Yeah? Equilibrium, equality for everybody. Why not? What question being better? Question of obligation. But if a person's not upholding their end of the bargain, then guess what? Doesn't matter. Then you can have non-Jews better than Jews. In God's eyes. Why? Because the Jews are shirking their responsibility. They're not doing what they should do. They're for sure not doing what they should do. Well, that's the issue. Right? That for sure is the issue. Well, again, there's a secular mentality. And the secular mentality says, oh, you think you're better than me. You think you keep Torah mitzvahs better. You think you're a better Jew. You don't even think I'm Jewish. Is your mother Jewish? Your mother's Jewish. They have an inferiority complex. Because they know deep down in their soul, you think what I'm doing is wrong, right? 100%, we think what you're doing is wrong. God thinks what you're doing is wrong. Not a question what I think. Nobody cares what I think. Doesn't matter. In God's eyes, are you doing the right thing or not? I don't care. Right? So now they're going to make, they'll make a very simple inference. What's simple inference? Simple inference is, if I believe in God, and God's law says what they're doing is wrong, then by definition, what I think they're doing is also wrong. Right? Someone say, oh, yeah, you think we're living in sin? Yes, I do. Because that's what the Torah says. Yeah, I'm not going to beat around the bush. That's the way it is. Right? So some people have an inferiority complex. I'm also Jewish. I'm just as Jewish. If your mother's Jewish, you're right. But what if you don't keep anything? But what if you don't keep anything? What makes you any better? Just because you have the DNA? But the DNA doesn't change anything. What does the DNA do? All the DNA does is that you have that spark that non-Jews don't have. But anyone who wants to convert probably was on Mount Sinai, so they have that spark. Right? They have some aspect of that spark, let's say. Very good. So again, even though we're chosen, God chose us, we chose him. People say, oh, that's arrogance. Non-Jews could have chosen it. They didn't want it. God went to all the nations. Gemara says, Avodah 2b to 3a. God says, you want the Torah? They all rejected it. Jewish people said, sorry, God came to the Jewish people. You want the Torah? They said, no, it's Eben Ishmael. We'll do, then we will hear what it says. Then we'll hear what it's all about. That's not arrogant. We think we're right. We're not saying they're not Jewish unless their mother's not Jewish. But they think deep down inside, we look at them as like subhuman. We think, oh, yeah, I don't dress that way. I don't keep I don't do this. So I'm not as Jewish. Is your mother, again, what's the answer? Is your mother Jewish? Then you're Jewish. There's no doubt, then you're Jewish. Do you keep what you're supposed to? No. How's God going to judge that? You're in trouble. And if we don't do the right thing, we're also in trouble. We're all in trouble. Yeah? Essentially. But again, it's not arrogance. If a person says you're not a Jew because your mother wasn't Jewish, or there's a quasi-conversion, that's a different issue. But if a person's saying they're not Jewish because I'm more Jewish than you, and you got a chip on your shoulder just because you were born Jewish, that's a problem. And even if a person's an Orthodox Jew and they think they're better, because they're an Orthodox Jew, that's also a problem. We have to keep what we're supposed to keep. There should be no arrogance whatsoever. Person's going to say, look, I learned a lot of Torah, I kept a lot of mitzvahs. Mishnah Perkei Avos says, great. That's what you're supposed to do, dimwit. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to, don't call him a dimwit, right? That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to keep Torah mitzvahs. Very good. Now you're going to think, oh, you're so great. That's what you're commanded to do. That's what you're commanded to do, period. Right? That would be my short, long answer. Somebody asked before, I guess I missed the question. 1 second. Somebody asked, does Hashem also use the world to reward us? Now, he could. He very well could. In other words, you see evil people are successful, right? And righteous people suffer. Why are evil people successful? What's the main reason? Because God wants to wipe them out in the next world. But God has to reward them. God has, if they gave charity once in their life, if they upgraded across the streets, so God has to reward them. God absolutely has to reward them. Now, if that's true, could a person can get reward in this world because God wants to wipe out in the next world. But there's another reason. The Arizal, Rabbi Gloria, blessed memory, says, right, famed for Kabbalah, he says, how could a Jew get reward in this world for the mitzvah they did if they did it with great joy? They could get part of the mitzvah. Part of the reward of the mitzvah is they did it with great joy. Because they can't get the whole mitzvah, right? Why? Because the Gemara says, mitzvah b'hai alma leika. Mitzvah in this world, b'hai alma, this world, right? Alma, Aramaic for olam, for this world. Leika, you do not have. So you can't get the merit, you can't get the reward of the mitzvah in this world, through in the spiritual world, right? Through in Om Haba. But says the Arizal, could a person get some aspect of the reward? Yeah. They could get some aspect of the reward based on the fact they did it with a great mitzvah. They did it with great joy. That's how they could get it. So that's one thing. Now, second thing is that does it use this world to reward us? Now, either we're talking about merits, getting reward for what we've done, right? Or is it the fact that there are things in this world that God, maybe throw us a bone, a proverbial bone, right? And will give us something, not necessarily the reward per se, but he can use things in this world that we can benefit from, that maybe we didn't have before. So that he could do. That for sure he could do. Right? Does he necessarily have to do it? No. But you see, we get a lot of benefit from this world. Tremendous benefit from this world. right? But that's not necessarily the, so I mixed two things up here. That's not necessarily the reward for the sake of the mitzvah that he did with great joy. Not necessarily. But he could use this world to reward us, yes. 100%. Yeah. What is it exactly? Good question. That's a good question. But he could give us things, he could give us material things that can help others, make life easier. Right? You see by Noah, right? His name is, what does the word Noah come from? Nakama, compassion. They invented something that made plowing very much easier. Right? So that made life easier for man. This world we live in now is, we're living in a very easy world. If you go back to World War II, before World War II, life was very hard. Had a lot of hardship, just in everyday life. Indoor plumbing, that's a whole nother thing. Things we take for granted. You don't have to go to the well to get water. You don't have to heat up water on a fire, per se. Go outside, make a fire, make it in your house, whatever. There are a lot of things been made much easier, much easier. Right? Imagine washing clothes back in the day. It's an all-day affair. Now it's very easy. What do? Stick it in the washing machine. When it's done, stick it in the dryer, hang it up, or whatever. But things that are made much easier doesn't mean life is better. And so, even though things are easier, we still have plenty of things to waste time with. Right? So, we can use this world for good, and he can have things created through us to make life easier. The question is, what are you using it for? What essentially are you using it for? Right? That's the question. Someone here says that Hashem gave them comfortable life, little good things they've done, yeah. But it's going to abandon them later, right? In other words, if they got reward, you see people that seemingly, okay, they're athletic. They can hit a ball, shoot a ball, whatever, kick a ball, yeah, and they make millions. Why do they make so much money? Just to blow it in the end. But so it could be. God gave them everything in this world for whatever mitzvah they did. And he's going to abandon them later, meaning they're going to die like a dog. No offense to any dog lovers out there. A dog dies, only has a nefesh, right? The nefesh behemoth only has that animalistic soul. So a dog goes poof when it dies. That's what it does. It dies. Nothing happens. And God is going to abandon them. Someone says, there's a story, Rabbi wanted a poor person kill their only cow, and that the cow was dead, right? So it was the food and milk, right? Right? There are a lot of stories like that. Just to keep in mind, there are a lot of stories. There are a lot of stories where, you look at the story, you make it's very hard to understand. But when you see the bigger picture, right? When you see the bigger picture, the story makes more sense. Makes a lot more sense. Yeah. So some things are there for a reason, right? I.e., we see what it is straight away. Other things are more as a parable, right? They, used as a marshal, what we call what we call a parable. But again, even a parable, many times, great rabbis will say, okay, story of a king, the son, or a king and the servant, and this happened, that happened, so what's the parable telling us? Whatever it may be. There's some things like that, right? Some things like that. Other things, are based on, are based on true things. So, true things, when they come about, there's a lot of, a lot of things. A lot of things a person can learn. There's no, I don't think there's any question when it comes to, when it comes to parables, you have to see. It's whoever's bringing down the parable, they'll tell you what the, what it really represents. So there are a lot of good parables out there. Yeah, a lot of good parables out there that will describe something, in the form of a story. Everyone can relate to a story, right? Sometimes the story's better, sometimes not, whatever it may be, but we can relate to it, right? We have the ability to relate to it. So by relating to it, what does it do? Right? It gives us a way to think in a different way, right? Some people, for some people, it's better because they can visualize it. They can visualize such a thing. Yeah, they can imagine such a thing. It's not just something dry. Okay, you do this because of this, and that because of that, and what's the moral of the story? So what's behind what the law is? Okay, right? But when you hear it, it's like in the form of a story or in other things, right? So it makes it easy to understand. Sometimes understanding the parable, right? Sometimes understanding the parable, it's a lot harder to understand, right? It depends what it is. But parables are what they are. You have midrashim, right? And people have difficulty with midrashim because sometimes they're just hard to understand, or not only hard to understand, but they're contradictions. You have contradictory midrashim, which means that a medrash will never establish Jewish law. Even let's say one of the commentaries brings down a medrash or something, that's not going to establish what the law is. Right? Anyone tells you otherwise, they have no idea what they're talking about. A medrash is a Talmudic statement that didn't make it into the Gemara. For whatever reason, didn't make it into the Gemara. So, yeah, there can be contradictions. And even the contradictions, practically speaking, doesn't really mean that much. Now, I'll give one example. Rashi says, Parshas Noach, he said, who is Noach's wife? Naamah. Noach's wife, his name is Naamah. Right? Naamah means the root of the word is Naim. Naim means pleasant. Yeah. So her ways were pleasant. Very good. So one of the other commentaries says Naamah, that the Torah mentions, happened to be married to the king Ashmadai. Who's the king Ashmadai? He's king of the demons. Or the Shindalits. We won't say demons. Right? Shadim, Shindalits, right? So we don't, mention their name, whatever. Right? So I remember I asked my Rebbe, I said, okay, I got a question. He says, yeah. I said, who is Naamah? Right? I said, Rashi over here says, others say, it was Noach's wife. I said, one of the other commentaries, I forget who it was, says she's married to the king of, the demons, the Shindal, whatever. He just laughed. He says, right. So I said, and? So they can't both be right. Right? Different opinions. Right? So when you have different opinions in a medrash, or maybe contradictory midrashim, practically speaking, according to Jewish law, it doesn't mean that much. It doesn't have any effect on Jewish law at all. Right? Medrash is very interesting. It fills in a lot of gaps. Of what's going on. Right? What's going on, Medrash commentary on the Torah, right? You have a commentary on Leviticus, Medrash on Leviticus, called, what do you call it? Called Trosky, right? You have Medrash on the book of Numbers, Medrash on the book of Deuteronomy and Genesis, right? The lot of Midrashim, right? That fill in gaps. They for sure fill in gaps. But the fact that they contradict each other, they can contradict each other. We're not worried about that. We're not, you try and find a solution why they might not be contradictory. But at the end of the day, practically speaking, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, it doesn't have any ramifications. It has no other ramifications. Right? When the Gemara has a contradiction, the Gemara will say, okay, why is it not a contradiction? Because of this, because of that. Right? They say, no, why do you say that? It must be like this, or it must be like that, or it must be like something else. And it comes to a conclusion. Sometimes the conclusion is we don't know what the answer is. Elijah the prophet's going to come back. He's going to tell us what the answer is. But then in that case, could be the commentators say we'll be stringent like this, or we'll be lenient like this. But there's usually some level of, an answer, a conclusion. There'll be some level of a conclusion. It's never just like left up in the air and we don't know what to do. Right? We're going to know what to do. right? Even the difference of opinion doesn't matter. There's a hierarchy of how we hold without going into all these details. So there will be clarity. There will be, I mean, there might be a lot of details, true, but there will be, at the end of the day, there'll be some level of clarity. Okay. When it comes to a medrash, doesn't necessarily mean there'll be clarity. It's opening up different ideas and different things and filling in gaps of knowledge, right? Or filling in gaps that aren't there. Okay. Right. But practically speaking, when it comes to Jewish law, it has no power whatsoever. There are times some of the commentators say, yeah, the Gemara will say like this. One of the commentators say, yeah, but there's a medrash like this or whatever, and they answer up however they answer up. But they're not using the medrash as necessary. They're asking a question. It's not very common, but they'll ask a question based on the medrash, but everybody knows that the medrash is not so authoritative, not as authoritative. So no one's going to use it in Jewish law. Right? Anyone knows anything about Torah knows this, right? This is a basic thing. Right? So now, since such a basic thing, you just heard it now. Very good, right? But, if someone thinks they know something, they say, we hold according to this medrash. It could be some things. Very few things. Like, the medrash says like this, and this gives credence to what we do. Okay, but that's not final authority. It's not usually looked at as the final authority at all, right? Probably 99% of the cases, never looked at. Never looked at when it comes to Jewish law. But again, fills in information, fills in gaps, gives us other knowledge. Can there be contradictions in them? Yes. Absolutely can be contradictions. Yeah. So we try and understand why there's a contradiction. Maybe there's not. Maybe we can answer like this or answer like that. But, I never see people getting too worked up about it, right? It's not practical, right? According to Jewish law, it's not practical. Is it interesting? Yeah. Definitely interesting. Definitely interesting, right? Practically speaking, doesn't have any power. Doesn't have any power, right? And again, anyone who says it does, they don't know what they're talking about. Right? That's a clear-cut reason to say, like, nobody says such a thing. You can say, well, I just said it. Okay, but no one else says it. Nobody greater than you in 10 lifetimes that you'll never see. You never see the crust in their toenails. No one makes such a statement. Yeah. But again, it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. Someone pointed out to me, Yalkut Shimon, he's a medrash on Tanakh and medrash on the Torah as well. There's a commentary. He's got the medrash as a commentary on Sefer Yonah, on the book of Jonah. Right? And someone pointed out to me, he said, you should look at it. It talked about, when Jonah's in the whale, what he sees. When all the worlds that he sees. Right? It's not very long. I mean, not translated, but it's not very long. Right? It's only relatively easy to go through. So I remember before Yom Kippur, I went through it. Yeah, it was wild. Saw this, he saw that, he saw the other thing, he saw like unbelievable things while he was in, the stomach of the whale or the fish, whatever it was. Right? Okay, so that opened up doors. It says, it says he was in the stomach of the fish. Very good. Right? Right? The commentary said the fish was pregnant. He was like stuck in there. Wasn't very comfortable. Let's just say. But he saw this whole thing while he was in the fish. He saw like all, he saw the whole world through the, as the fish is going through, wherever it was going. Before he got spit up in a dry land. It's amazing. So, it was an amazing thing. Does it have any practical relevance? To Jewish law? No. Well, it was explaining, going into detail, what he saw when he was in the stomach of the fish. Right? Filled in gaps. Right? So commentaries do that also. Right? They don't necessarily use measures. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Right? They'll ask questions from other things, whatever it may be. Very good. So, it's not as practical. Right? That was not as practical, but it's interesting. Right? Especially in Genesis and other places where, you go, very interesting storylines, fills in gaps. Listen, that's what the Gemara does also fills in a lot of gaps. Right? So what the Gemara doesn't fill in, the Medrash fills in. But again, a lot of these things, people say, okay, if I ever have spare time, I'll look at it. Right? Some of it's been translated a little bit into English, but I'll look at it. Okay, because it's not practical. Right? For JIT, right? And when I was out there, you want to learn things that are practical. Right? You want to learn things you enjoy also, but you want to be grounded. Right? It's very interesting. We mentioned about Chabad. If anyone who goes to Chabad, what's one of the big things? They're going to teach everyone Tanya. The Frierdiker Rebbe, the first, Bavcha Rebbe, the Baal Tanya, right? It's all, it's a lot of it's steeped in Kabbalah, a lot of it's Hasidus. Now, as much as they water it down, how much can a person get if you don't really know that much about Hasidus or Kabbalah? But they'll teach it to people, right? They'll definitely teach it to people, even if they don't know anything. They're okay. Maybe a person will get something out of it. That's, I'd go through, Path of the Just before I went through that. I'd go through, Gate to Repentance, Shari Tshuva, or the Ways of the Righteous, right? Or Chovos Levavos, right? Duties of the Heart. Many of other books, much more, easier to go through, before you look at that, right? But, they'll say, everyone has to learn it. Everyone has to know it. It's complex. It's like trying to start at the top of the ladder without knowing very much, but they'll do it. Because they think it's important. Everyone should know, what the Baal Tanya said. He's more known for that in this generation than really what he's really known for is his commentary in Halacha, right? In Jewish law, right? He's got a lot of commentary on blessings and prayer and, and other things. Well versed in Jewish law. The most people learn that? No, they learn the Tanya. They learn about Chassidus. They learn Kabbalah. What he says about, grace after meals and other things. Most people couldn't say what he learned, what he knows. Sorry, what he said. They couldn't tell you. Why can't they tell you? Because they don't learn it. They don't learn it. Another thing about Chabad, one of the things they're big in is, is going through what the Rebbe said. Okay. I quote my Rebbe all the time. Very good. But that's not the only thing I learned. Right? I'm not saying by all Chabadniks, that's all they learn. Right? That's a major thing they learn though. That's part, it's part of their curriculum is to learn that. Okay. What about Jewish law? What about Gemara? Not even Tanakh. Yeah. Jewish philosophy. Yeah. So I'll say, okay, look who he was. They learned his Torah. So plenty of other Hasidim learn their Rebbe's Torah. Okay. Right? They make it part of their day, to learn all his Torah. I don't think so. Part of their thing. What's their focus? Gemara. That's their focus. Jewish law. That's their focus. To learn what the Rebbe said about it and this and that, good. I don't have an issue with that. But you don't make the most important thing less important or whatever. That's why the Vilna Gaon came out very strongly against the Hasidim. It's not the same today. Because as Nefesh HaChaim says, right, famous student of the Vilna Gaon, right, Rav Chaim of Volozhin, right, it was a famous student of the Vilna Gaon, wrote Nefesh HaChaim, the Soul of Life, right, never been translated, but he said in the fourth gate, which everyone learns, all the other gates are, a lot of it's steeped in Kabbalah, we're talking about the importance of learning Torah. What does he say? He says you can go to some communities, they don't even have one shas. They don't have an entire Talmud. All they have is books of Musa, books of ethics. That's why he came out against it. Because he said they're never going to know anything. They'll know a lot about ethics. Okay. Ethics has a place. That's not the most important thing. Yeah. You have to learn ethics. Every day a person should learn ethics. Shouldn't be able to feel like a piece of dirt till they, to know how they have to properly act. Okay, but you're not learning hours on end. It's become part of the curriculum in yeshivas today. 20 minutes, usually about half an hour. Yeah, let's say. In most yeshivas. Okay. But what's the rest of the day? From morning to night, what are they learning? Gemara. That's what they're learning. They're learning Gemara, they're learning commentaries, they're learning Jewish law. That's what they're learning. Jewish philosophy on your own time. That's on your own time. Yeah. Musar, they have time for that. They'll make a time for that. In Volozhin, they didn't have it. They didn't have a specific time to learn Musar. Why? Because Rav Chaim of Volozhin said on the Netziv, right? Naftali Tzvi, Berliner, from Berlin, the Netziv. So when he said if you saw him say Ava, Ava Rabbah in the morning, right? The prayer before the Shema, and you saw the fervor, you saw the tears, and all that, you didn't need to learn Musa. Right? You didn't need to learn Musa. All you had to do was see him. See him how he said the word. That was enough Musa. So they didn't have a Musa. They didn't have a proper time in the yeshiva curriculum to learn Musa. In most other places, they have a certain amount of time. Now they have a certain amount of time. Probably usually about half an hour. It's usually about a half an hour. Someone asked, reciting a blessing. Before eating, want to be careful not to recite a bracha shein tzricha. Right. A bracha shein tzricha means it's a blessing I don't need. It's kind of like saying I made a blessing in vain. Why? So let's say you made a blessing. Let's say you weren't sure if you needed to make a blessing. But at the end, you realized that you did, then you made another blessing. That's a blessing I shouldn't have made. Right? Talking about a first, it could be an after blessing also. Let's say a person ate, they made an after blessing. They weren't sure. They said, make another after blessing. That's also a problem. Right? It's not just the first blessing. Right? It could be in the first blessing, maybe they were exempt. Maybe they were exempt. They ate two things in the same blessing category. But they thought they need to make a new blessing. That's a blessing I don't need. Yeah, it could be a blessing in vain also. Right? And after blessings are different. An after blessing could be the exact same thing. In other words, you didn't think you needed to make an after blessing, but you did. Very good. You ended up making an after blessing, but you didn't have to because you already made one. Yeah, that's a problem. Right? It can go on both. It can go on the before blessing, and it could go on the after blessing as well. Yeah. Any other questions? How do we get on these topics? Yeah. Any other questions? Someone asks, it's better to eat without a blessing if we're not sure. The assumption is you probably made a blessing. Yeah, unless you know for sure you didn't make a blessing, you make a blessing. Otherwise, you're right. Because there's a Talmudic dictum, Safek brachos lahaka. If I have a doubt, I need to make a blessing, we are lenient. So if you have a doubt, better to eat without making a blessing because you're not sure. Right. Or eat something of the same blessing category. You know for sure you need to make a blessing. And then have that in mind. You can take care of that either way. Right? But if you don't have anything you want to eat, same blessing category, then you don't make a blessing. Then you would not make a blessing if you're not sure. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. I'm going to stop here. I do this every Sunday, 9 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com, or Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos on the Torah portion of the week, Q&As, ethics of our fathers, book of Leviticus. You want to send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBIChaimCoffman @gmail.com. Wish everyone a good